start, and Brad will lead us in the pledge.
Pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Well, welcome everybody. We are back in open session. We've been exec, and we were in open first, and now we're back. And it's a meeting, and we're going to go ahead and get started. And there must be some modifications to the agenda. There usually are.
Yes, let's modify the agenda. We are going to remove item J1.
Okay, very good. We'll school district business, and we'll move that without objection. Anything else? Personnel reports all in good order, hopefully, right? Okay, all right. So we'll move on. And so modifications, public comment period. Sean, I think
Yes, we have a couple names. Anthony Hayton.
Hayton.
Yeah.
Okay.
Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
My name is Anthony Hayton. I'm a resident of West Village. I'm also one of the commissioners of public safety for the city. On Friday morning, my daughter was on her way to high school on the bus and was physically assaulted by 4 other students. My main questions is why, when I went to the school, no one could tell me what their procedures were after asking 4 staff members, including the principal, why the police weren't contacted at the time and I had to 2 hours later, why there wasn't a bus aide on the bus who can actually break up the entire thing, or why the bus driver, who barely speaks English, didn't stop and help at all. And I find that to be some in a lot of ways pretty ridiculous. And something needs to be done about that. That's it.
Thank you.
Karen Yearwood.
Hello, and I'll provide a little more context to this situation. I'm talking about the same bus safety, West Village, for the bus that goes to West Village and the school, to have like safety measures investigated, because it seems like we've heard from several people from within the Department of Transportation that they may feel fearful to even be a driver on the bus to West Village. And we still need to take care of our children that are at West Village being transported to the elementary school, middle, and the high school. So this safety issue, there was a videotape of everything that transpired, and the parents were called in. And from the videotape, the daughter of Anthony was a victim, more or less. So why was that child suspended is a question. So the child, the parents were first told 5-day suspension. They went in and had a meeting yesterday with the principal and other administrators at the high school. And it turned out that it was, instead of 5-day suspension, 2 days. And they had inquired at the meeting, well, why, if you're the victim, should you be suspended for that length of time? So good thing that it was reversed. It was a principal's suspension that was reversed, but yet 2 days this young lady missed school at the beginning of the school year. So these issues, the family had come to the village at Ithaca. We provide a family advocacy program, so they wanted to know what to do next. They've already completed the DASA form, and several times, because it seems like there's been a growing incident of bullying from a few of the students to this one young lady on the bus. So that needs to be investigated. Why did it have to get to this point where the child was injured, physically injured? So we just need to look at safety issues for our students. We know that we're looking into that, but really further, West Village is part of the community like every other community. So we need to take this seriously.
Thanks, Karen. Let's see. Oh, that's it, okay. Thanks, and we'll have board responses right now. There's no one else who wishes to speak right now, correct? From public, we're good, right? Board responses? Chris, go ahead.
First of all, so I don't know all the details of what happened, and just due to individuals involved, I couldn't speak to any specifics. I'm sorry for whatever happened. I hope your daughter's okay. And Karen, it doesn't matter where our buses go. We feel like every location is important, and we take this very seriously. And you can believe that we will look into this and see what we need to do. I always hate these public comment sessions because we can't say a lot, but I think I can speak for myself. We are available, to see really what's going on and understand what steps we can put in place.
Thanks, Chris. Others?
Soon we'll get some follow-up. Dr. Brown?
Sir?
Okay, the one question was about an aid on the bus. I know we have them on some buses, not all. Don't know how, if you want to transfer somebody from one bus to another, how you want to do that, but it sounds like we need to take a look at that.
Other comments?
Yeah, well, you heard from Chris, I'm gonna follow up with that as well, right? So that someone will follow up. I hate the public comment as well because there's a lot we can't sort of engage, but there will be some direct follow-up. I fully expect Dr. Brown, probably by the end of this evening, will give us some information within the next day or so. And I know Chris said that it doesn't matter what community we're talking about, you're absolutely correct. But as someone, my grandbaby lives in West Village, and so it's a particular community for me as well, so there's no doubt that we will make sure that there's some particular follow-up.
Anyone else? Well, this is news to me. Thanks for coming and talking to us tonight, and echo Chris, Sean, and everyone.
And if I could just add on.
Feel free.
And Karen knows this well because she helped us develop a communication protocol. And we have a communication protocol for the school district. And if not getting the answers to questions that you have, I know I'm ultimately on that list too. And in this situation, I have had a conversation with you or heard from you. So if Karen has helped you navigate through this, if not getting the answers or to questions or having questions for someone at the school, then there's someone at the central office, and then there's me. My number is always there, my email is always there, and you can always call me, and I can give you the answers without being in a public meeting like this where we can't talk. All right.
Appreciate it. So we look for more information soon. Anyone else wish to speak on anything else or speak to this? All right, we'll move on. We're just gonna go ahead and approve or not the consent agenda.
I'll move the consent as presented.
Second.
Second by Chris. Questions, anyone? Go ahead.
Prior to approving the consent agenda, I did have a conversation with Dr. Brown briefly at the start of the beginning of the school year. I realized that we're renewing our contract with OCM BOCES. It's a 5-year contract, and I've been asking some questions about if we've been relatively pleased with the services been provided. And this is a conversation that we have had at any point in time. I don't know if that's, I apologize, I missed the last finance committee meeting as well.
No, it's actually, we've asked for all of the OCM contracts to be summarized for the next finance meeting.
So is there a reason that we are under some time-bound responsibility of agreeing to this current contract? Or is it something that we can explore a little further before we agree to a 5-year contract?
I don't know if there's a deadline. My guess is the school year has already started and we're already doing some of this. I don't know if there's July 1, 2018. We're already a couple of months into it at this point. I'm aware of the issues they had Thursday and Friday with it, and not sure where we came out on that. And this is only a $75,000 contract. This is not.
It's not the big one, right?
It's not the main COSER. Do you know what this COSER is? Amanda 601. Yeah, I don't recognize it.
Okay.
It's for one COSER. We have asked to have them all, everything with OCM brought forward at the next finance meeting.
Any other questions? Are we good? You good, Sean? Or we'll go ahead, but we have asked for that.
Be at the next
Right.
finance meeting.
Right. So good. All in favor? That will be Nicole, Rob, Pat, Ann, Brad, and Chris. Those opposed, those abstaining. That would be Sean. And we are 7. Moira and Eldred are absent tonight in other obligations. So we are 7 out of the 9. So, yeah, my voice seems to be failing me a little bit. And we're on to school district business. And Dr. Brown, I think we're going to start out. We're going to hear from you in a little bit, but according to the agenda, we're going to do My Brother's Keeper update. Do you want to do your?
No, I would love to jump right in on that.
Shall we do that? Or-
Change the agenda around on.
Going by the agenda as
Yeah, I like
Dr.
it. We have Ms. Mary Jo and Mr. Travis Cook here to give an update on our efforts to cross this outstanding grant we received.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you.
So we'll start with where we are, or what happened in 2017 and 18. Beginning with the family engagement piece, the highlight of this was over 67 staff attended a summer family engagement facilitator training. And participants looked at where their implicit bias was intersecting and how they were engaging families, and then strategies to address that. For example, what venues our school events offered at, how are we reaching out to families, are we putting students at the center, or is it another adult to an adult experience? And moving forward this year, participants of that training, every building has one appointed MBK family engagement facilitator that will work with the equity team member and the anti-marginalization design team in every building to move the work forward. So that was the first component that was exciting.
One of the things that we were able to pull off was a peer-to-peer mentoring program. We had 14 seniors and juniors mentor 14 freshmen and sophomore from November through June. They met weekly with the coordinator, Ms. Sessoms. They met with their mentees. And the mentors received a stipend each month of $75 for participating, which was nice for some of them. At the end of the year, they had to do a social justice project. So they did an art show at GIAC, and the art show's theme was police brutality, specifically in reference to brutality against black men in this country. There was people from the community that participated, the students did paintings, they did collages, it was well attended, it was really nice. We're gonna continue that this coming year. In the beginning of the year, we had about 350 students of color in middle school and high school that we considered part of the MBK population. Through the different programs at the village, there was family advocacy, there was SAT prep, they did tutoring down here at the high school for some of the sports programs. There was our Boys to Men program, which taught a healthy men's masculinity. There was students added to College Discovery, Paul Shore's program, our Excel program, which was for students who fell below a certain threshold in the high school, whether it was attendance, behavior, grades. There was a cooking program with the youth farm with families and students at GIAC. We had some young men of color hired at the youth farm this summer. There's several other programs, and over 110 middle and high school students participated in these activities. And this is not including some of the one-time activities, these are ongoing activities. So we were able to engage a quarter of our population of students of color over this past school year.
Great. So what's next? So we're really excited about a partnership that's going to happen this fall with engaging an alumni, be working to offer in collaboration with high school staff enrichment activities with computational thinking and tech integration in hopes to shift the population of students in the demographic in some of the tech courses that our high school offers right now for the winter, for January's winter semester.
It's a young man who struggled throughout high school, graduated through the Conservation Corps program, took a year off to kind of figure things out, ended up in school in California, San Francisco, an art school. He really got into tech, really got into video production, and he's here for this school year. And so one of his missions is to talk to young people and let them know that you can struggle in high school, there's alternatives, there's other ways to get through, and that as difficult as things may be, and as hard of a time you're having, you can figure this out. So it's one of the things he really wanted to do was come home and do something this school year. He actually has a job in New York City. They are off for a year, they're doing some constructions and a whole bunch of different things to where he's working, so he came home for the summer. The youth farm this year is doing a leadership program, and so from September through December, there'll be 6 young people that are engaged in a social justice leadership program. It should come off really nice. Parents will be engaged. We'll do some programs with the parents on navigation through the school. Every program we have this school year, one of the things that they've included is to ensure that they are bringing in families and engaging with families. So that's happening starting in September.
October, we're really excited about a launching of a van that will have access to give students and families access to computer needs, but also coding technology, virtual reality,
Internet service.
That will go from community center or high traffic points in the community.
So in theory, you would have a tech van go up to, let's say, West Village once or twice a week for a few hours. They would provide internet to the students that are up there. They would provide an opportunity for students to come to the van, use some of the tech equipment, use some of the computers. We know that printing papers and a whole bunch of other stuff are issues for some of our students. So they'll do that. They might go up to Lindemann one day. Wherever our kids are kind of at in population, that's where they'll be at. So we're really excited about that. It's pretty innovative.
And Chuck, you're not the most important part. We're going to add some of the cool emerging technologies, VR glasses and some 3D printers, some things that they wouldn't have had access to. Typically, don't have that. And it's going to be a cool looking thing. We're going to tape it up, put some wraps on it too. Yeah.
Dr. Brown's face, my face, Karen's face.
Sorry about that. We got a good part.
We are going to continue SAT prep this year. Through the grant, we bought quite a few books. We're going to work with the village to continue that program and try to offer it twice this year so that if students don't do well enough, they can retake it. Last year, I think we engaged 7, 8 on a regular. And so we would like to engage more than that this year, triple that number and really make a dent. So that's one of the plans that we have for this year.
And then in addition to that, we're working with our high school school counseling department as well as college advisors in the area to engage families in the process, from the application to the essay writing to financial aid forms. That process is really extensive and to have someone to talk about the different options, the different types of colleges. He's really well versed in the region. What is offered is exciting, so we'll be doing that in October and then again in February.
In November, it's the Facing Race Conference. It's held in Detroit this year. We're taking 5 students down for that. There are folks from the school district, from the community. But we're really excited to be able to take 5 students to Detroit and allow them to have this experience. One of the things that we're going to be working on at GAC is when we come back is to have a community conversation. It's all the students that go, the staff at GAC, there's folks from the school district. We plan to get everybody together and figure out how to have that conversation, how to have some workshops, and how to bring that back to GAC. So the students will play a key role in that. We had 2 students this year that were MBK fellows for New York State. So every district in the state who signed up for this challenge had the opportunity to nominate 2 fellows. And we had 2, Mamadou Ba and Isaac Butler. Unfortunately for the school district, and very fortunate for Isaac, he was accepted into a prep school down in Florida, so he's no longer with us. So we'll replace him this year. But it was a pretty big honor when we took the young men down to Albany in April. It was just amazing for them to walk into this room with all these black men and women and students that looked like them, that were trying to do and planned on doing and engaging in really big things in their community. So we're excited to be part of that and keep that going. And one thing that we did at the end of the summer, and we didn't count that in the numbers for this, is we had 2 family bowling nights. And they were free to any families, and we really pushed for families of color to come. One was for 5th graders going into 6th grade. The other one was for 8th graders going into 9th grade. The idea was to bring administrators from the schools, families, kids, free bowling, free food, have a night of fun, talk, get to know each other in a different kind of way. I really would like to give a shout out to Boynton. They had at least 10, maybe 12 staff there, including their administrators. And the high school had the administrators, quite a few staff. There was staff from this building as well, both nights. So it was really well attended by the staff. So that was really a good showing from the school district. So we will be doing that again this year at the end of the summer. Questions?
And
I do have a question. It sounds like you're doing some fabulous things. I really love that van idea. That sounds really neat. In particular, my question for you is, how are you identifying, how are the people finding the programs that you're offering? Like, how will they find your van, or how will they find your SAT prep? Like, how are you reaching the people that might enjoy participating?
So for each program is done differently. So we are working on a application for communication for students of color. Specific is one of the items we have to complete in the grant. It's one of our goals. So it really depends what program we're talking about. SAT prep, for example, between the guidance counselors, the graduation coaches, getting information to those particular students who would be eligible for that program. There are juniors that are already engaged in college discovery, Paul Shores, the Village, GAC. So it's kind of it's a 3-part process. It's utilizing some of the technology to get information to families. It's having that contact with programs they're already engaged in, and it's utilizing the graduation coaches. For the tech van, I think once we have that rolling and we start letting communities know we're coming, that will take care of itself. I don't think that it would be difficult to kind of advertise that we're going to be there. Once families know we're coming, there will be kids. There'll be a line of kids trying to get into the van to participate.
And I bet they will. And do you feel for these other programs, are you satisfied with your reach, or do you wish you had more participation, or?
Well, I think that when we started this, when we were writing the grant, I don't think we anticipated that we would be able to provide programming for 350 kids, $450,000. that wasn't the goal. The goal was to increase family engagement, to help engage the students. There's some students that are doing really well in the district. There's some students that are engaged in some of these programs that are doing well, and hopefully they'll do better. The big thing is to figure out how to continue to engage our families, to engage the school with the families, and to take the students who are not where we want them to be and figure out how to get them there. And provide support, more support for those who are. So I didn't think that we would be able to serve all 350 students. But we didn't want to limit it to just the high school, because we have to provide programming to engage students when they're younger. It would be nice if it was 1.5 million and we could engage all the middle schools, the elementary schools as well. But it's, it's a limited amount of money to do this work. I'm excited that the community partners really hit their numbers. I'm excited that they really took this serious, and we had a lot of great engagement from the partners. Some things didn't go as well as we thought in the beginning, and they were flexible and creative enough to change things and meet students where they were. We had students struggling that played sports and were participating in the theater program. And so instead of, waiting for kids to come to the village came to the school. And so, that was, some of the really exciting programming that happened this year, to meet students where they were, be creative and flexible.
Outstanding. Other questions, comments? Chris? Sean?
No questions, as a comment. Watching the grant sort of develop and thinking about where we were 8 or 9 years ago, and it is pretty impressive the amount of programs that we're trying to find ways to engage family. Of course, I hear you said we always want to do more, we always want to engage more folks, but I also don't want us to sort of, that's a pretty good list of things that we've been doing for a short amount of money, and sort of raise some questions that we may need to have after the grant is over, how we're going to try to continue this work as well. So thank you for the work you're doing. Keep giving us data like this so we figure out how we're going to keep this going moving forward. So appreciate it. Oh, and last thing as well, SAT prep is going to be interesting. One thing I may humbly recommend is, I understand that more and more institutions are becoming SAT and ACT optional, and particularly more and more elite institutions as well, which will set the standard. And so one of the conversations we may want to have is maybe not necessarily replacing that, but adding the college admission process, and I could offer some services to lend you that way as well, to help provide some workshops for folks, and maybe equally as important as what you score on your SAT.
Great, thank you.
It's a daunting process for all parents, regardless of circumstances. But it's navigating the district is one thing, which but trying to navigate that college application process is a whole another level. Exactly. But outstanding work. Great update. Thanks. Thank you.
Thanks. You're welcome.
Thanks for bumping me on the agenda.
So Dr. Brown, we wanted to hear from my brother's keeper because it's really, really important. You are later on the agenda, but I'm going to use my prerogative, and Dr. Brown, we're going to move you above the policies and and capital project update. So I'm just moving you up, Dr. Brown. So Superintendent's Report, Dr. Brown, then we'll move on to other things.
It's more about principle than anything, because I only have one quick update, and that's to give a shout out to the Ithaca High School class of 1951, Amanda Urban knows this well. It was a great set of goals to raise $15,000, and they have succeeded in reaching that goal, and they're looking to transfer those funds to the school, to the high school more specifically. And if you just, Urban, do you know exactly what they want us to do with it?
Yes, so they're hoping that we'll be able to actually come to the meeting in person. We'll probably do some of the finance transfers ahead of time, but they've worked really closely together to try to raise their goal of $15,000 for Code Red Robotics, to have a trailer that will be identify the school district and the Code Red Robotics, and it'll include a wrap, not your face and Travis's face, I don't think, but it'll be just as jazzy. And it will be towed by facilities department's vehicles. Paul's made sure that we'll have those available. And so we'd like to sort of make that an official acceptance when they are available to join us for a meeting. They may do that virtually, but more to come.
Well, great, then.
Special shout out to that class. On any given Saturday and or Sunday, we have classes here touring our new spaces, and Jason Trumbull, myself, and there's a club at the high school that gives those tours almost every weekend now. So thank you all for coming and thank you for setting goals like this.
Great. Is that it, Dr. Brown?
That's it.
Okay, all right. So,
Thank you for the opportunity.
no, it's no problem, Dr. Brown. And so now we will go to item 4, which is the capital project. Three, sorry, we changed the number. Item 3, which is the capital project update. I don't normally numerically.
No.
We go on to the capital.
Item 3 is summer professional development.
Wait a minute.
Summer
It's
professional
at the
development.
bottom, that's why.
Hi, everybody.
Oh, sorry.
Nice to see you.
It's
So,
my apologies.
it's okay,
I
it's
knew
great.
you were there.
It's good to see you all. I got to sit here just a few weeks ago when we were in the midst of our summer professional development work. And I'm here to give a little bit of an update as to what happened over the summer in relationship to that. So if you recall from our last discussion, we made sure that our professional development offerings this summer aligned with one or more of our 3 key levers around inclusion, culturally responsive practices, and innovative teaching and learning. We saw a lot of overlap, and that's really important for us to ensure that those 3 really stay connected in terms of concepts and in terms of our practice. We had 31 unique in-district offerings offered by 26 in-district people and 5 out-of-district people. And we think that's pretty impressive, given that some of these folks are teachers and administrators who've been here for a long time or short time, who are really sharing their expertise and facilitating these professional development learning experiences. If we can scroll to the next one, please. Thank you so much. In terms of numbers, we had 122 elementary educators participate. 74 secondary educators chose to participate, and 42 administrators. Anne had asked a question not that long ago about what percentages, really, what does that look like? That's about a third of our educational staff, right? Making the choice to take time during the summer to engage in professional learning that's offered through My Learning Plan. If you can go to the next one. We also had a survey that we asked just about everybody to complete at the end of each of the sessions. And some of the questions that we asked them were to rate, did you learn what you expected to learn in today's session? You can see that's just a straight average here. That on average, people said that they agreed with that as a 4.27 out of 5. Was the presenter knowledgeable and prepared? Do you have a new or deeper perspective on this topic after your work today? And how much will your work today impact your practice? So you can see where that leads us. We're excited about the next steps, especially around that last one. We know that standalone professional development has its place, it's important. It can really provide a great springboard for some change in terms of our practice and impacting student experiences. And we also know that job-embedded professional development is also really effective and can actually be more effective. So we're going to continue with a both and, or really create a both and approach.
and provide more instructional coaching opportunities, that job-embedded professional development through instructional coaching. So we're gonna provide that more this year. So we'll be working with our teachers on special assignment, people who are already out of the classroom, working on tech integration, culturally sustained pedagogy, those who are working with our ENL teachers, in order to really go through that training and get some experience in order to work with teachers in their classrooms around student-centered, some student-centered coaching goals. And furthermore, we have a strand of choice-based professional development for our elementary educators as opposed to just organized by grade level, and now it's gonna be interest-based professional development release days throughout the year. And in between those, folks can sign up for coaching opportunities with the teachers on special assignment who are going to be working with them. So we're trying to really connect the work that we've done over the summer to the classroom much more explicitly. So that's a lesson learned, I think, from the summer and just moving forward. There was also some qualitative data that I think would be helpful to end on, and then I'll take some questions. So from this survey, where we had, I think, 307 respondents, there were a number of quotes that we collected. So some of the questions we asked, again, were, what will you do differently in your practice as a result of your work today? One person said, I will be more mindful of my implicit biases, an open mind for the cultural differences, and an even more proactive approach to communicate and engage with families in my building. Another person said, I'll work out how to engage all families, starting with home visits and meetings. Another practitioner said, I'll be much more specific with the final outcome expectations for our students. Breaking down tasks and differentiating more for a wide range of students' abilities. Adding more feedback throughout unit work. Another respondent said, I will use the strategies from today to have uncomfortable conversations about bias. In response to a question of what new or deeper perspective do you have on this topic, one person said, I enjoyed practicing the confronting bias and microaggression activity. It was helpful to practice what someone might say and how to respond. Another said, the focus on culture helped shape a more powerful case study, a project-based learning. Here's one that's near to my heart as a math person. Prior, I struggled to make the rational numbers unit interesting. It was beneficial to have time with my colleagues to collaborate and develop PBL, a project-based learning unit that would make this unit more engaging. So that's exciting. Rational numbers, exciting, that's great. And lastly, I'll teach the history of immigration, but also apply it to what's going on in today's world. So you can see people really had opportunities to create really meaningful connections to their work in the classroom and in families and with each other. So that's what we did this summer. I'm happy to, and where we're looking ahead, and I'm happy to answer any questions if you want to add anything.
The first slide is complex.
It's not exactly the.
I did look at the slides prior too, and yeah,
it's one to study, Rob.
Yeah, it's
It's one to study.
I need some PD on that probably. It's, as long as you all can follow it, I think that's good. Anything else?
I like the fact you answered my one question, but you tied it into the classroom. You learned things from it. Then it's one of the questions I always ask. But how do we expand on this? How does it grow? I mean, one question I'd love to see is how are they sharing it outward with their coworkers? Because there's one that didn't go, and so I guess it's a not a rhetorical question, but it's almost a thinking question. I can't find the term.
Channeling Eldred, that's great.
No, it's not.
Appreciate it.
Ask a question.
It's a prompt for us to it's really to challenge us to think about how we might do that differently and encourage and support that kind of sharing, right?
Yes.
Yeah?
Yes.
Yeah.
And we established a professional learning community structure 8 years ago. And our training associated with that is to have horizontal accountability and us to be professional developers in this together. So if one person from a team of 3, and I know my kids' team, only one person went to the culturally responsive diversity session this summer, but I know they've been talking about it as a team already. So with our PLC structure that's embedded in the contract that this board helped negotiate, we have that time embedded for this to be scaled.
I know you probably don't have this information necessarily available, but do this, when you said like about 30% of the staff participated, is it every year like the same 30%? Or like is it, you know, like is it like maybe 1 year it's?
And I was gonna ask why the penetration at the secondary level is so much less than at the elementary level.
I'm not sure yet.
Let us do some data digging.
Yeah, I
That's a
think we
great
can, yeah.
question. And we know, I should be interested to see how much of our staff is here from year to year. I mean, you can look at that question first. How many of our staff members are here today that were here 7 years ago? And then correlate that data to what we see with our professional development. Is it newer people coming to PV
Right.
or more experienced people?
Well, yeah, and is it like your first year people, your people that are just starting out, or are your senior people also participating? I'd be kind of curious to who chooses to.
And they're compensated for those days?
Most.
Some are, some are not.
Sorry.
I mean, I think our data will speak to that. We know that anecdotally, that the sessions that we offer, when we pay, at midnight on the first day you can sign up, they get filled up pretty quickly. And the others fill up later. I mean, there are some pretty complex, robust software tools that allow us to get the answer to all these tools. Right now, we're gonna be doing it by hand, or maybe we investigate what it would look like to get some of those tools they need to get at some of these answers.
I think Chris's question is a really good question in terms of how do you come back to the classroom, or how do you come back to your peers to tell them that I've learned so much, and I really think you could too without it being insulting,
Yeah.
and without, and also saying yes, you know, we had some really difficult conversations, but you know, they helped me come out on the other side, and I think that that's the hard work. When I think about conversations that I have, getting coffee while I'm dropping my kids off to work, I have random people who want to have these complex conversations with me, and I usually return that with, you should talk to your white colleagues about this, because that's how you continue the work. Having this same conversation with me every week isn't making the world a better place, but you talking to your white coworkers who actually have the power to shift things will do it. But I think people find that to be the hardest of the work is going back and sharing this information.
Yeah, because it's a several step process. It's one, the initial education and understanding and awakening, and then it's the expanded dialogue. So, see, Ron.
But it is that educator, that rational number. I've done this topic for years now, and I can't make it more. I mean, how can I make it more engaging? Well, I'm gonna interact. I'm gonna reach out, and that's, I think, what, for some of our teachers for staff that have been, how can I engage my students more? How can it be better? How can I make my class, your classroom, I know I walk by your classroom, it seems like there's interesting stuff going on. I want my classroom to be like that. So I think it's really just continuing to spread the message and offer opportunities to, if I make rational numbers, if I can make that more interesting, my day's gonna be better. I mean, it's gonna be I'm gonna have a more rewarding day at work, so it's.
And these lives are gonna be better.
Right, exactly.
Sorry, Nicole.
I was just adding to Rob in terms of being self-aware, to walk past a classroom and say that my classroom could be better. I think
Right.
we have, as teachers or just as parents, as people, having the awareness that I'm always growing and that I always want to grow and I can always do better. So having teachers that want to strive to be better, I think that there's room for growth is important.
For administrators too. Right. I mean, there were administrators, 42 administrators there, right? Something like
Every
that.
single one.
Right, exactly.
Say that's
Cabinet board.
Yeah.
Yeah, virtually everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Now, Dr. Brown, well, we already heard from you, but we're gonna do a capital projects update. Now
Okay.
we're gonna do capital projects update.
Thank you so much for the opportunity, Mr. David. Ms. Burke, please come up and help me with this. Tonight's a special night, just like every night it is with you all at a board meeting. But tonight, I know we've alluded to it previously, but tonight this is our official launch of our intention to have a capital vote this spring. I think I've benefited more than anyone else when it comes to what this board and this committee did 10 years ago. I stepped in to this role and the board had approved a $100+ million capital bond, which helped us change our school district. And the time has come for us to have that conversation again. We've had some already, and we're working with architects, and Amanda's going to talk more about that in a second. But our initial communications to our community is going to be around these key topics. This initiative, this vote will be a vote to help with safety and security, teaching and learning innovations, and our infrastructure needs. And we feel like it will set us up for the next 10 years. And you'll see some of the categories, broad categories that are under each one of these. I'll touch on a few. We've heard from our community. We've talked about our front entrances. That is a safety and security concern for our community. It's something that we hope to address early on in this, what we hope it to be about a 10-year process to upgrade our facilities here. So front entrances is a big one for us. Looking at some ADA inclusion goals that we have as a school district we want to address as part of our safety and security issues. Teaching and learning innovations. We know we want to continue to upgrade our learning spaces to make them more flexible, to make them more inclusive, to have more large multi-purpose rooms with contemporary technology. So we're looking at some options and how we can do that to expand on what Ms. Talby just spoke to as far as our teaching and learning efforts. And then finally, infrastructure, the things that we have to do, everything from equipment to painting, flooring. We know we have some flooring that needs to be addressed. And more important, I'm going to say it here, some HVAC, I don't want to say concerns or issues, but some upgrades with our HVAC. And I don't want to call it air conditioning, but some cooling and airflow and air ventilation, particularly in some of our hotter spaces, which we learned much about this last week. So with this bond and with this vote, we hope to address some of those concerns, which and you probably heard about every day last week when we talk about infrastructure needs in our attempts to upgrade. So a lot more conversations. We hope to set up a website that will have a lot of information about this. We're planning a series of community conversations. We're going to advertise those dates, and we're going to go out and hear from our community about their specific wishes and visions when it comes to these categories. And we also look to share some information about some things that we are doing. Again, many conversations with our community over the next several months, leading up to what we hope to be a vote in May. Amanda, would you add anything to this right now?
No, I think it's really important to stress the fact that it's over 10 years, right? We'd be looking for funding that we would have the allowance to spend up to that amount over a period of time. This will happen in phasing, so no one should really get frustrated because it might not happen in phase 1, but it could happen in phase 3 or 5. We'd obviously go through a very significant process of prioritization that involves all levels from maintainers, grounds, facility, community members, exec team members, teachers, parents, principals, directors, and all staff. So I think that we're kind of doing this all together, and so there's a lot of learning that has to come from sort of what we know from building condition surveys. And then there's also learning for us in terms of what the community needs are that we may not be able to identify in those building condition surveys. So that process is well underway.
And I think folks will see early on, if approved, that we're working from the outside in. We have some learning space needs on the outside, the exterior of our buildings, some co-curricular spaces, athletic fields we know we need to address immediately, including, and then also moving to our front entrances, and then internally with some of our learning spaces and classroom spaces. So we hope to start outside first and sort of work our way into buildings. Thoughts, questions, reactions to our initial communication. We hope to put some of this in the Insider and out in some of our public spaces as well.
Brad?
Come to facilities,
Here we go.
come to the meetings.
I think last month meetings. The August meeting, it was the high school team and athletics. This month, it will happen next Tuesday. We will have Boynton, DeWitt, LACS, and the Transportation Department. And as we've presented in the past, our goal is to really have the department leaders as well as the building leaders coming to the board meeting, those committee meetings in terms of facilities, to be able to have sort of that conversation with the board. They're tasked with their 3 top priorities. That's really difficult to do because they get a lot of feedback all throughout the day, and the early September needs when it's really hot could be very different than the mid-January needs when we have maybe some backups on some of the drainage issues and there's icing. So they have to be very balanced and really thoughtful about a 12-month building management. And so, again, just like we do the budgeting year-round, when we're doing this capital project planning, just today we were talking about those colder days that will be in our future in terms of the way that, just the drainage at the high school and the bus loop and what that happens when that ice is over. So we have to be mindful of safety, inclusion, our levers, and then the elements that are listed here.
And man, can we give the soundbite, because I know folks are waiting to hear about the fiscal implications. I mean, the board approved the bond 10 years ago, and we've had that level of debt service now, we've been carrying it for a while.
Sure.
And speak to what we
What
foresee.
the goal is.
Sure, so just, for the folks that have mortgages, right, there's principal and interest. And as the longevity of that mortgage goes, the principal increases and the interest decreases, and obviously those payments, if you refinance them, they can go down in total. The board has done a really good job of looking at those payments and refinancing them and bringing them down. But we are approaching, in terms of a debt service, which is equivalent to sort of like a home mortgage, sort of those payments will get to a place where they will begin to decrease. A goal for a school district is to sort of be able to keep monies that are allocated by a separate vote to go out for a bond to address facilities, to address infrastructure, to address safety and security and teaching and learning. And you have to keep your buildings as current as you do your practices, because they really do support one another. That debt service line, you can track that in our budgets. You can take a look, and we actually have a calendar that takes us all the way out, I think to 2030. And you can sort of look at those debt service payments, and they will be continuing to decrease. The goal is to sort of keep those flat by also going out for new debt. And so you use sort of that old debt that's decreasing, you enhance new debt, so then that way you're able to address your building infrastructure over the course of time. We have 1 million square feet, that's indoor square feet to take care of. And so, our planning is long-range planning in the sense of going from sort of year 1 through year 10, and we hope to sort of continue that cycle to do that planning without impacting the budget by increasing that debt service line.
And that's why I say I'm benefiting, because of the board's thoughtful planning, we have not had to increase that line significantly over the last 10 years.
The objective is to keep it as level as we can. We won't be able to keep it perfect, but to keep it as level as possible, so it has no budgetary impact. We'll continue to make debt payments at roughly the same level for the next 10, 20 years.
And I know there's that weird quirk with the tax cap, right?
Well, and while these are exempted from the tax cap, explaining to voters why, well, we can ask you for 8.5% increase this year because that's within the cap, because we went out and borrowed all the money at once. No, we don't want to do that. We'd rather borrow the money in pieces so that we can continue to stay and not have this impact our tax cap at all in our budget. That's our objective. I won't say we'll be 100% successful, but I think that's what we're tracking and what we want to be able to do. So we'll borrow it in pieces, over the course of 7, 8 years for a 10-year time frame. We'll borrow it in pieces. We'll probably do as we did last time. We'll do some short-term borrowing, then lump larger numbers together to do long-term borrowing, more efficient. So we'll be doing things like that.
Yeah, and I think to your point, it does help with the predictability in terms of expenses. That debt service line is flat. We know what the capital exclusions are in terms of the impact of the tax cap. But we also, on the revenue side, right, the tax cap is the impact to our voting public, right? We wanna try to keep those taxable, those exclusions in terms of capital exclusions, flat, as well as the state aid that's coming in. Because when you fluctuate your debt service, the aid goes along with that, because remember, building aid is an expenditure aid, so you have to expend money to get money back. And so when you have those blips, it also causes those peaks and valleys in revenue. That's not our goal. Our goal is to have consistency and predictability across the long range, so that we can do some long range planning for that.
It's probably important to tell the community as well, we have desires and wants and wishes that we're hoping to do and try to be innovative with the money as well. But every 5 years, we do a building condition survey, which puts our deferred maintenance costs at well above whatever we could possibly consider borrowing. And so for the community to know that we wouldn't, even no matter what we come to have this conversation, there still would not be enough money to complete all our deferred maintenance costs.
Right.
And so we're gonna try to find ways, obviously, to take care of our building spaces, to make sure that they are safe, that they are with being as inclusive as possible. And so I think that's an important thing for folks to know, that we are constantly doing our building condition surveys as well to try to figure out what is our priorities.
And as Amanda pointed out, we got 12 instructional buildings with 1 million square feet. And we've got Hancock Street, we've got Bostwick Road.
Which is really important, that's the hub of our
That's the bus
transportation department.
Transportation hub, you got Danby, we've got a number of other facilities, and as she pointed out, it doesn't all happen within the four walls.
Right.
We got the playgrounds and athletic spaces and so forth. From a replacement cost standpoint, we're looking at probably $450, $500 million of buildings here. To put in perspective, a $90 million or $100 million borrowing over 10 years, we're looking at a physical plant that's well over 400 million, maybe over 500 million in replacement costs. So we need to keep investing in it. In order to keep it up.
Absolutely.
One thing that we've talked a lot about in facilities, but I also think it's important to bring up is in terms of safety and security, the focus on front entrances. Just want to talk about, because that's kind of a concern in terms of how people get in and out of the buildings and some of the challenges that are being looked at there.
Sure, so, I presented to the board and at facilities committee about the allocation for Ithaca City School District, that every single school district also received different amounts, but we received 2.5 million in what was called the Smart Schools allocation. That only stretches so far. That's gonna give us there were some immediate concerns about safety and security in terms of sort of what we were seeing in the world, in the nation. We wanted to try to address some of the front entryways through a key card locking system where, this would allow you to sort of have the ability to get in and out of the buildings and not have sort of free flow. That works really well. However, once you get past some doors in some of our buildings, you then enter into the building in its entirety essentially, and you're able to go in a number of directions. I think one of the strategies that we chose to still keep sort of that welcoming feeling that we wanted to our buildings, but not have sort of that free traffic flow, was to be able to have sort of a pause space or a waiting space where we could welcome people, actually engage with them, and then invite them into the rest of the building. So if you didn't have a key card, it wasn't just that you could walk in and then have access to the rest of the building. That you actually would be greeted by someone, you would see someone, and that they would then be able to allow you to go into the building further. So that was really sort of our culture meeting the security needs. And so some of the buildings, that's easy to do. You can create a vestibule like we did in Caroline, and with not a lot of money. Others, for example, like a BJM, right, that has I guess a historic design, right, where it's very difficult to create a vestibule the way that city block allows. And so you have to actually utilize a space to be able to create potentially a new main entrance, that a greeter would be able to be there to be able to welcome community members and then let them in. And there are other buildings like that as well. We're looking at sight lines so that somebody actually, it's not like you wave them in and you buzz them in, that you actually are greeted by a person. So some of that takes a little bit more design than other buildings. Just because of the variety of the buildings. So there's a lot of conversation about that. If a vestibule is easy to do, we can do it, but we may also have to move some things around.
Opportunities for the public to be provide input. Last time we had fairly open meetings in the cafeteria, and folks would kind of sit down at tables and talk about what are our priorities.
We're
So
still a little bit of ways away from that, but we're getting closer.
right. There have been meetings going on. I mean, you've been meeting with every building leader has had an opportunity. Well, should have had an opportunity to brainstorm and create input on their building, and provide input to the committee and to you and their consultants and everyone else. But there's obviously the public needs to know, what's on the what's on the list.
Right. We don't have it tonight, and it is up on board docs from past presentations. I just want to remind community members that we do have an intentionality around the communication and the stakeholders. And so there's a communication information sharing large piece of paper that has lots of boxes on it, and we welcome everybody to refer to that. We feel that we really captured a lot of the voices that need to sort of be part of this planning. I think through the plan to capture those voices that have not yet been tapped are really through those community conversations. I think our plan is to have those just as we've had other topics in my time in the district and even before that, around lots of topics. This one will be focused on the impact of facilities on teaching and learning, right? And also as community centers, because we don't want to lose that either.
And from a timing standpoint, our goal is to have a plan ready in February for the May vote, so that there's plenty of time for conversation. I think our goal is to have a first phase in relative specificity laid out.
Right.
Second, third phases, fourth phases, with, which buildings, what type of work, but maybe not the same amount of specificity ready at that point. But we're going to be focused on a first phase so that folks know what's going to happen first, and with some specificity, some of the entrances and so forth. And then, a broader outline of what's going to happen in future phases as we move ahead.
Right. We and the public are going to have a pretty good idea of the,
Oh, yeah.
the scope and the impact,
Exactly.
and
Yeah, what's
because
gonna happen.
we're going to go out for one vote.
Yeah, and then, there will be some disappointment that something you really find important is in the third phase and not the first phase. There will be some of that, but we'll get there.
Got to make it to the phase. I mean, that's you want to be on the list. I think that's
Exactly.
right. Anything else, Dr. Brown?
That's it for that one.
Okay.
More to come, almost every meeting.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Lots of work to do. Thanks, Amanda. Thanks, Paul. Policy, Sean. Pat, others, right.
This round of policy, or maybe, well, I say that, I don't want to jinx it, say maybe quick, maybe it won't be quick. We have 3 policies that are on the agenda for this evening. They are in fairly rough shape. They are in response to an audit that the district had and trying to work with the Department of Education to modify some of our policies. This is particularly around Title I complaints, and so if you look at least in the policy that was attached to the agenda, this policy we have already adopted. What is new is the building capacity for parental involvement and the Title I complaint procedures. That part is the new aspect of this policy. If you look at it online, you can see it highlighted in terms of the new language. And that's the part we went through for policy 1900. For policy 5150, for children in temporary housing, what is new about that policy was also passed before. What was new about that policy is that we are now legally required, and rightfully so, to provide transportation for students who may find themselves in temporary housing. And so this policy holds the district accountable for providing transportation under those circumstances, particularly as a part of the McKinney-Vento Act as well. And then the last policy that's on the book is that we also are required to provide transportation for students who are in foster care. And oftentimes, That may be even students who are in foster care who no longer live in district. Should the committee of folks who are working with that child find it be in the best interest to continue attending the Pickett City School District, we would then provide transportation. And
Is
that,
there a mileage limit to that?
that's something we can ask the question. There's not 50 miles, is that what it is?
Yes.
So there is a limit.
Did we put that in the policy?
Yep, it's
We
in
did,
there.
that's right, yeah.
Point 3, any costs incurred
Ah, I
up to
see.
50 miles each way are subject to reimbursement through
Right.
state aid.
Yep.
And,
Yes, the
and
city.
on 5, transportation costs which exceed the allowable limit will be shared equally by LDSS and the district.
A good portion of what is on all these policies.
So we have to go more than 50 miles, is what you're saying.
If,
Transportation costs which exceed allowable limits. What does that mean? Is that the allowable miles? Or the cost per mile? What does it mean?
Outlined in statutes.
What does that rule, the cost transportation? If it's excess.
So,
So if it's excess, does that mean 85 miles?
more than
We'll
50.
go to Rochester and we have. I'm just asking.
yep.
Yep, it sounds like.
Those are all, that's part of the questions we need to ask. A good portion of this language is what I call legalese, but doesn't mean it has closed all the gaps to the questions that we have to ask about what we're responsible for.
Legalese doesn't necessarily have clarity.
That's exactly correct. So that is one question we will ask. There are a number of other word choices that we will most likely be changing as well in preparation for the second reading if we get that far.
Did you move all 3 of these for?
Not
first
yet,
reading?
nope,
We've been discussing.
I did not.
They're long.
Just curious.
They are needlessly verbose,
And they are what
required
the
by law.
state mandates us to do, so
Yeah.
it's not like we
Right.
can wordsmith them into something that makes more
Sense to us.
We're gonna do our best though.
Appreciate that.
See, we're gonna make Kate frustrated at us about what we can get through content.
Keep her on her toes.
So I move policy 1900, parental involvement, Title I complaint procedure for a first reading.
second.
Second by Pat. First reading, so we can put it through the ringer at another time, and you're gonna take another run at it.
We are definitely gonna take another run at it.
Actually, was at part of the policy meeting the other day, so. The end, kind of, part of it.
We
You
almost,
gotta love a sentence with 4 ors, 3 ofs, wow.
no
All-
punctuation.
Yeah, all in one sentence?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Deluxe. They didn't have one.
Yeah, I'm not a fan of the language.
So we will go one by one, and move seconded, obviously, read at your leisure or not, or meaning not your leisure, read at your command, I guess. But anything else right now on this policy, all in favor of first reading? That's everyone.
I move policy 5151, homeless children and youth education or assistance. It's a title we'll probably play around with, but it is what it is for now.
Second.
For first reading.
Second by Pat. Already spoken to it a bit, for a bit. Anything else, folks, on this one?
Just a reminder that if you look at the board docs, the change in language will be highlighted. Everything else is what we've already passed.
And this all runs together a bit.
Yeah.
It's always helpful, we appreciate that. All in favor? That's everyone for a first reading.
And I move policy 8401, transportation for students in foster care for a first reading.
Second.
Second by Pat. Are we good? All in favor? That's everyone. Thank you all. And one of the last items, is this National School Boards Association Equity Symposium Attendance Authorization?
Yes, so, this event's gonna take place, date again?
That is
I'm losing track of
September 26th.
September 26th, it's a 3-day event, it's in Las Vegas, and I am the opening keynote presenter. It's the National School Board Association for Urban Boards of Education. It's a well-attended event. They do it annually. And last year it was one of the highlights. It's one of the most attended events other than the national conference. So it's an exciting platform for us to talk about our work.
Is it the opening, are you doing anything else, or is it the opening?
It's just the opening on that Wednesday afternoon.
Okay.
And then hope to attend, which is going to be a great conference. I saw the schedule. They have some great sessions
Right.
on Thursday and Friday.
And I see some board members will be joining you.
Yeah.
And it looks like me, okay. All right.
So I move a motion to approve the attendance and associated expenditures for the National School Boards Association 2018 Equity Symposium Las Vegas on September 26th for the following board members: Rob Ainsley, Brad Granger, and Eldred Harris.
Second?
Thanks, Beth. There's Albert. That's the on the top. Any questions? Comments? All in favor?
Looking forward to the summary.
Thank you. It'll be well.
That's everyone?
It'll be well represented.
And Rob says he never goes
And
anywhere.
well represented.
I have never, this farm boy from Enfield has never been to Vegas, all right? It's just not, no. Yeah, whatever may happen there, we will, Dr. Brown won't report.
We want to hear about it, right?
Now, it's an educational conference on equity.
They do lots of conferences. And there's,
That's right.
So I think we've drifted into other discussion items, so we'll stop that discussion of that item. Anything else for the good of the group? I will only mention, I did attend the Enfield PTA meeting last night. It was a great group. There's been community has really come together and has had an outstanding start to the school year. Multiple events in August to bring folks out to school cleanup and open houses, and it's Chris and Keith are really done a great job of introducing themselves to the community, and there was really just a great buzz out there. They're holding bi-monthly celebrations, so they have a celebration on Friday morning, then 8 to 8:30, twice a month. The next one is the 21st, so I was gonna go out there. But it's great to celebrate achievements, and we do it at our level for our celebrations on a less routine basis, but that's something that they're doing out there, and everyone's really, it was a very good start to the year at Enfield, so that was my report from that I thought I would just add. So good stuff going on, not only at Enfield but around the district. We are in session, and we'll be, I know board members are already making it out to these first few weeks of school, and we'll keep trying to make it out to as many schools as possible. I'm sure Dr. Brown and I probably make a few trips, and it's always good to have a traveling buddy. Chris used to have Judy Maxwell. It's but it's when in doubt, take another board member or latch on to an administrator and say, hey, let's go. I've got a few hours. Let's go tour some schools. And so it's always great. Not only the first few weeks, but throughout the year. So I appreciate that. Anything else? Upcoming dates? Do we need to notice, be aware of?
Hanson Facilities next Tuesday.
And no other, I know curriculum met today, so however y'all can do your work sessions, and mostly on Tuesdays, so that's great.
Policy October 2nd, curriculum October 9th, both at 5 o'clock.
Okay. All right, very good. Anything else? Without objection, we're adjourned, and thanks everybody.
Thank you.